Captain Do-hyun Kim stared at his console screen. The numbers made no sense. 37 ships had just appeared on his sensors, all of them heading straight for human space. They were big ships too, much bigger than anything humans built. So Young, are you seeing this? He asked his communications officer. Lieutenant So Young Park looked up from her station. Her face was pale. Yes, sir. They crossed our boundary line 3 minutes ago. They're not responding to our warning signals. Do-hyun had been patrolling this sector for 5 years. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The boundary around human space was clearly marked. Every species in the galaxy knew not to cross it without permission. The quantum beacons sent out warnings in dozens of languages. No one could claim they didn't know they were trespassing. Send the standard warning again. All frequencies. Make sure they understand what they're doing. So Young's fingers moved quickly over her controls. She was good at her job. She could speak 17 alien languages and understood 12 more. If anyone could make these invaders listen, it was her. Unknown vessels, you have entered human territory without permission. Please change course immediately and leave our space. This is your final warning. The response came back fast. Do-hyun didn't need a translator to understand the tone. It was dismissive, almost mocking. They say human territory belongs to them now, So Young reported. They call it primitive space that needs proper management. They want us to surrender 3 colony worlds immediately. Do-hyun felt his blood turn cold. The agricultural world of New Jeju was in this sector. 2 million humans lived there. They grew food for half the colonies in human space. If these aliens took that world, millions would starve. What species are they? He asked. Valeth Confederation, sir. I recognize their ship designs from the databases. They're known for taking other people's planets. The Valeth were bad news. Do-hyun had read reports about them. They would attack weaker species, take their worlds, and force the survivors to work as slaves. They had conquered dozens of systems over the past century, but they had never tried to attack humans before. Get me Admiral Lee. Priority channel. The screen flickered, and Admiral Taemin Lee's face appeared. He was on the command station, orbiting New Busan, hundreds of light years away, but quantum communication made distance meaningless. Admiral, we have a situation. 37 Valeth ships have crossed into our space. They're demanding we surrender colony worlds. Lee's expression didn't change. He was known for staying calm in crisis situations. It was one of the reasons he commanded the Outer Rim Defense Fleet. Show me the tactical display. Do-hyun transferred his sensor data. Lee studied the information for a long moment. The Valeth fleet was massive. Each ship carried thousands of warriors. They had enough firepower to level entire cities. They think we're weak, Lee said finally. They see our small patrol ships and assume we can't fight back. They're about to learn how wrong they are. What are your orders, sir? Activate Protocol 7. Full spectrum. Every ship, every station, every colony. Do-hyun felt his heart skip a beat. Protocol 7 was the ultimate defensive measure. It had never been used before. Most humans didn't even know it existed. Sir, are you sure? Protocol 7 will... Captain Kim, those aliens just threatened to take human worlds. They want to enslave our people. Protocol 7 is exactly what this situation was designed for. Do-hyun nodded. He understood. When someone threatened your family, you used every weapon you had. Understood, sir. Initiating Protocol 7 now. Do-hyun entered his command codes. Across human space, similar actions were taking place on every ship and station. Within minutes, something unprecedented happened. Humanity vanished. Every human ship disappeared from alien sensors. Every space station went dark. Every colony world seemed to simply fade away. To outside observers, it looked like the entire human species had just stopped existing. The Valeth fleet continued toward New Jeju, but their sensors showed nothing. No cities, no orbital platforms, no defensive ships. It was as if the planet was completely empty. What's happening? So Young asked. Her voice was worried. We're disappearing, Do-hyun explained. Every human installation is shifting into stealth mode. The Valeth can't see us anymore. But how? Our ships aren't equipped for that kind of cloaking. Do-hyun smiled grimly. Our ships aren't, but we've had 50 years to prepare for something like this. The defense grid is much more advanced than most people know. The truth was classified at the highest levels. Only senior officers knew about the Prometheus project. Only they knew what humanity had really been doing for the past 5 decades. On his command console, new contacts began appearing. Ships that had been hidden were now moving. Defensive systems that had been dormant were coming online. The Valeth had no idea what they had just awakened. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout our territory. The readings are off the scale. Do-hyun nodded. That's the Guardian network initializing. The Valeth wanted to see human defensive capabilities. They're about to get their wish. The Valeth fleet was now deep inside human space. Their commanders were probably confused. They had expected resistance. Instead, they had found empty space. But Do-hyun knew that empty space was an illusion. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Valeth flagship. They're demanding to speak with human leadership. Put it through. The alien face that appeared on screen was reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The Valeth commander spoke in broken English, clearly trying to sound intimidating. Humans, we know you are hiding. Your cowardice proves you are unworthy of this space. Surrender now and we will allow some of you to live as workers. Do-hyun looked at the alien with disgust. You made 2 mistakes today. First, you entered our territory without permission. Second, you threatened our families. We don't forgive either of those things. Your tiny ships cannot fight our fleet. We have superior numbers and firepower. Numbers and firepower aren't everything. You should have studied human history before coming here. We don't lose wars on our own territory. The alien laughed. Your species is young and weak. You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have been conquering worlds for 10,000 years. And that's exactly why you don't understand what you're facing. Do-hyun cut the transmission. There was no point in talking anymore. The Valeth had made their choice. Now they would face the consequences. On his sensors, the first Guardian was moving toward the Valeth fleet. It looked like a small frigate, nothing threatening. But appearances could be deceiving. The Guardian was something entirely new in galactic warfare. It was part human technology, part ancient alien artifacts, and part something else that even human scientists didn't fully understand. Sir, the Guardian is approaching the enemy fleet. Should we move to support? No. We stay here and watch. The Guardian doesn't need our help. The Valeth fleet noticed the approaching ship. Several of their vessels moved to intercept. They probably thought it was a scout ship or maybe a suicide bomber. They had no idea what they were really facing. The Guardian reached the edge of the Valeth formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something impossible occurred. The small human ship simply passed through the shields of the nearest Valeth vessel as if they weren't there. How is that possible? So Young gasped. Quantum field manipulation. The Guardian can alter its molecular structure to pass through solid matter, but only in one direction. It can get inside their ships, but their weapons can't touch it. What followed was unlike anything ever seen in space combat. The Guardian moved from ship to ship, appearing inside their hulls. It didn't destroy the vessels, but it disabled them completely. Life support failed. Engines shut down. Weapon systems went offline. Within an hour, half the Valeth fleet was drifting helplessly. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but more Guardians appeared. These ones looked different. Some were sleek destroyers, others were massive battleships. But they all had the same impossible ability to phase through enemy defenses. Captain, I'm detecting dimensional distortions around the enemy fleet. Space itself seems to be bending. Do-hyun nodded. The Guardians weren't just ships. They were weapons that could manipulate reality itself. Humanity had spent decades learning how to use technology from ancient civilizations. The Valeth were about to discover what that knowledge could do in the right hands. More human ships began appearing throughout the sector, but these weren't the small patrol vessels the Valeth expected. These were warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved in ways that defied physics. They appeared and disappeared at will. They struck from impossible angles. Sir, The Valeth are requesting reinforcements. They're calling for their entire war fleet. Du-hyun smiled coldly. Let them come. The more ships they send, the more we can capture for study. Our scientists will want to examine their technology. Are we winning, sir? So young, this was never a fair fight. The Valeth thought they were attacking a primitive species. They have no idea they just declared war on beings who have learned to manipulate space and time itself. The battle continued for several more hours, but it wasn't really a battle. It was more like a demonstration. The Guardians systematically disabled every Valeth ship without destroying them. Human vessels appeared from nowhere, struck with precision and vanished. Dr. Haewon Choi stood in the center of the most secret facility in human space. The Prometheus research station existed in a pocket dimension, hidden from every sensor in the galaxy. Here, humanity's greatest minds had spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. All Guardian units report ready status, announced Chief Engineer Mi-Young-Yu from her control station. The network is fully online for the first time since construction began. Haewon nodded. She had supervised the Prometheus project since its beginning. She had been there when human explorers found the ancient ruins on Vega Prime. She had watched as human scientists slowly learned to understand technology that was millions of years old. Begin full activation sequence. Authorization Prometheus 77 Alpha. Throughout human space, ancient machines began to wake up. They had been sleeping for 50 years, waiting for the day when humanity would need them. That day had finally arrived. Commander Jun Seok Nam sat in the pilot seat of the Soul's Fury, humanity's first true warship. Unlike the patrol vessels that most aliens had seen, this ship was built using Prometheus technology. It could bend space around itself, making it effectively invisible. It could phase through solid matter like a ghost. Most importantly, it could manipulate time itself. Commander, we're receiving orders from Prometheus Control. We're to engage the Valeth reinforcement fleet. Jun Seok checked his instruments. The Valeth had called for help after their invasion force was defeated. Now 300 ships were approaching human space. They thought they were coming to rescue their captured comrades. They had no idea they were flying into a trap. Take us to intercept coordinates. Activate all stealth systems. The Soul's Fury disappeared from normal space-time. To outside observers, it simply vanished. But Jun Seok could see everything around him perfectly. The ship existed in a quantum state between dimensions, invisible and untouchable. On the research station, Haewon watched the tactical display. Red dots showed the approaching Valeth fleet. Blue dots showed human Guardian units moving to intercept. But the real surprise was the green dots. Those represented the new reality manipulation devices. 50 years ago, human explorers had found something incredible in the ruins of an ancient civilization. The beings who built those ruins had learned to control the fundamental forces of the universe. They could make solid objects permeable. They could bend space and time. They could even create pocket dimensions where different physical laws applied. The ancient civilization was gone, destroyed, by their own power, but they had left their technology behind, waiting for someone wise enough to use it responsibly. Humanity had proven themselves worthy by spending 5 decades learning control before attempting to use the weapons. First contact with enemy fleet, in 30 seconds, Mi-Young announced. Haewon activated the communication system. All Guardian units, you are authorized to use full capabilities. Show them what happens when someone threatens our people. The Valeth fleet was massive. Each ship was twice the size of anything humans had built before the Prometheus project. They carried enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. Their shields could stop any conventional weapon. Their armor could withstand direct hits from nuclear warheads, but conventional weapons were not what they were about to face. The first Guardian ship appeared directly in front of the Valeth fleet. It was small, no bigger than a human frigate. The Valeth commanders probably laughed when they saw it. One tiny ship against 300 massive warships. Then the impossible happened. The Guardian ship simply passed through the lead Valeth vessels, shields as if they weren't there. The alien shields were designed to stop energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and electromagnetic fields. They had no defense against something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Inside the Veleth, flagship alarms began screaming. Systems started failing randomly. Life support flickered on and off. The ship's computer couldn't understand what was happening. According to its sensors, there was nothing wrong. But according to the crew, everything was breaking down. Target their command systems, Junseok ordered as he piloted the Soul's Fury through the hull of another Veleth ship. Disable their weapons and engines, but leave life support functional. We're not murderers. This was the key difference between humanity and species like the Veleth. Humans could have built weapons that simply destroyed everything in their path. Instead, they chose to build weapons that incapacitated enemies without killing them. It was a harder path, but it was the right one. More Guardian ships appeared throughout the Veleth fleet. Some looked like human destroyers, others resembled alien designs that had never been seen before. But they all shared the same impossible ability to phase through enemy defenses. The Veleth tried every tactic they knew. They fired their biggest weapons at the Guardian ships. The energy beams passed right through them without causing any damage. They launched missiles with quantum-seeking warheads. The missiles couldn't lock onto targets that existed in multiple dimensions. Within an hour, the entire Veleth reinforcement fleet was disabled. 300 ships floated helplessly in space, their crews alive but trapped inside vessels that no longer functioned. Prometheus Control, this is Guardian 1. Enemy fleet has been neutralized, no human casualties, minimal alien casualties. Back on the research station, Heywan allowed herself a small smile. The Guardian network had performed perfectly. 50 years of preparation had paid off, but the real test was still coming. Doctor, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy. Multiple species are demanding explanations for our capabilities. Heywan nodded. She had expected this. When you revealed power that seemed impossible, everyone wanted to know how you did it. Some would want to steal the technology. Others would want to form alliances. A few might even want to destroy humanity to prevent them from becoming too powerful. Are we detecting any immediate threats? The Zephyrian Empire is mobilizing their fleet. The Kastani Republic is doing the same. It looks like they're planning a coordinated attack. Heywan wasn't surprised. The Zephyrians and Kastani were old enemies of each other, but they would work together if they thought humanity was a threat to both of them. Together, they could field over 1,000 ships. Activate the Deep Guardian protocols. If they want to see what we're really capable of, we'll show them. The Deep Guardians were humanity's ultimate defensive weapons. Unlike the regular Guardian ships, these were built around cores of pure ancient technology. They could manipulate reality on a massive scale. One Deep Guardian could disable an entire fleet without firing a shot. But they had never been used in combat before. Today would be their first test. Mi-Young's fingers flew over her controls. Deep Guardian Alpha is responding, moving to intercept the Zephyrian fleet. Deep Guardian Beta is targeting the Kastani ships. The Deep Guardians looked different from regular Guardian vessels. They were larger, sleeker, and they seemed to bend light around themselves. When they moved, space itself rippled like water. What's their estimated time to target? They don't need time, Mi-Young replied. They're using dimensional folding to travel. They'll arrive simultaneously with the enemy fleets regardless of distance. This was another advantage of Prometheus technology. Human ships could step outside normal spacetime and appear anywhere, instantly. Distance became meaningless when you could manipulate the dimensions themselves. Commander Nam received new orders as he finished securing the last Veleth ship. Guardian Squadron, we have new targets. 2 enemy fleets are approaching our outer colonies. We need to show them that threatening humans is a very bad idea. The Soul's Fury and her sister ships began moving toward the new threat. But this time, they weren't alone. Regular human ships were also responding, destroyers and cruisers equipped with the latest Prometheus technology. The galaxy was about to see the full extent of human capabilities. On the research station, Heywan watched the tactical display with growing concern. The number of enemy ships was increasing rapidly. The Zephyrians and Kastani had been joined by the Mordak clans and the hegemony of suns. Over 2,000 alien ships were now converging on human space. Doctor, are we sure we can handle this many enemies? Hei-Wan looked at her chief engineer. Mi-Young was brilliant, but she was also young. She hadn't lived through the early days of human expansion, when every day brought new threats from hostile aliens. Mi-Young, do you know why we called it the Prometheus Project? Because we stole fire from the gods? No, because we learned to control fire without burning ourselves. These ancient weapons could have destroyed us 50 years ago. Instead, we spent decades learning to use them responsibly. That patience is about to save the human race. The first Deep Guardian reached the Zephyrian fleet. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for centuries. The Deep Guardian didn't fire any weapons. It didn't ram enemy ships. It didn't even approach the fleet directly. Instead, it simply changed the fundamental properties of space around the enemy ships. Suddenly, the Zephyrian vessels found themselves unable to move. Their engines worked perfectly, but they couldn't generate thrust because the space around them had become solid. Their weapons functioned normally, but the energy beams couldn't travel because light had been made non-transmissible in their local area. Withy. Envoy Sang-hoon. O stood before the largest communication array in human space. The quantum transmitter on New Sol could reach every inhabited system in the galaxy simultaneously. Today, he would use it to deliver a message that would change everything. Are all channels open? He asked the technician. Yes, sir. We're broadcasting to over 10,000 worlds across 47 species. The entire galaxy is listening. Sang-hoon nodded. He had been chosen for this task because of his ability to speak clearly and calmly, even in the most difficult situations. Today would test that ability to its limits. Behind him, General Yoon-ji Kang monitored defensive positions throughout human space. The defeated alien fleets had been sent home with their tales of impossible human weapons. Instead of discouraging further attacks, the demonstrations had caused panic across the galaxy. Sir, we're detecting massive fleet movements. The Valeth Confederation is calling in every ship they have. The Zephyrian Empire is doing the same. It looks like half the galaxy is preparing for war. Sang-hoon had expected this. Fear made people do stupid things. The alien governments were afraid that humanity would use their new weapons to conquer the galaxy, so they were building the largest military alliance in galactic history to destroy humanity first. How many ships are we looking at? Current estimate is over 4,000 vessels, sir. Every major military power except the Centauri Federation and the Altair Republic. 4,000 ships. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. If it had been facing any other species, the outcome would have been certain genocide. But these aliens still didn't understand what they were really fighting. Begin the transmission. Sang-hoon looked directly into the camera. His words would reach every alien leader, every military commander, every citizen capable of receiving quantum transmissions. Citizens of the galaxy, my name is Sang-hoon. Speaking on behalf of the human species. Recent events have caused confusion and fear throughout known space. Today I will explain exactly what happened and what it means for all of us. He paused, letting his words reach distant stars. 3 weeks ago, the Valeth Confederation invaded human territory without warning or provocation. They demanded the surrender of our colony worlds. They threatened to enslave our people. We responded by defending ourselves using capabilities we had hoped never to reveal. On her command screen, General Kang watched as more alien ships moved toward human space. The enemy fleet was now larger than all human civilian and military vessels combined. But numbers meant nothing when you could rewrite the laws of physics. Since then, multiple species have attacked our territory. The Zephyrians, Kastani, Mordak, and others have all sent fleets against us. Each time we have defended ourselves. Each time we have shown mercy to our attackers, but our patience has limits. Sang-hoon's voice hardened slightly. This was the part of the message that would determine whether the galaxy chose peace or destruction. We know that an alliance of 43 species is currently gathering the largest military fleet in galactic history. Your leaders believe they can destroy humanity before we become too powerful. They are wrong about our intentions, and they are catastrophically wrong about their chances of success. In his laboratory deep beneath New Jeju's surface, scientist Young-ho Shin studied captured alien soldiers. The Valeth, Zephyrian, and Kastani prisoners had been treated according to human medical standards. They were healthy, comfortable, and completely bewildered by human behavior. Dr. Shin, the neural interface is ready for testing, his assistant announced. Young-ho nodded. The neural interface was another piece of Prometheus technology. It allowed direct mind-to-mind communication between different species. More importantly, it allowed humans to share memories and emotions with aliens who had never experienced them. Bring in the first volunteer. The Valeth soldier who entered the room was typical of his species, large, aggressive, and convinced of his own superiority. He had volunteered for the experiment because he thought it might give him useful intelligence about human weaknesses. Sit here, Young-ho instructed, gesturing to a chair equipped with neural sensors. This won't hurt, but you may experience some unusual sensations. The alien sat down reluctantly. What are you going to do to me? I'm going to show you why humans fight so hard to protect their territory. You came here to take our worlds. I want you to understand what you were really trying to steal. Young-ho activated the interface. Suddenly, the Valeth soldier's mind was flooded with human memories. He experienced a human childhood on New Jeju, playing in fields of golden wheat, learning to read in his grandmother's kitchen, sleeping safely while his parents watched over him. He felt what it was like to fall in love with someone who shared your dreams and fears. He experienced the joy of holding your newborn child for the first time. He understood the deep contentment of building something lasting for future generations. Then the memories shifted to human history. He experienced the Holocaust, where millions of innocent people were murdered by those who thought they were superior. He felt the fear of nuclear war, when humanity almost destroyed itself through pride and hatred. He lived through the early days of space exploration, when humans learned that the galaxy was full of species who wanted to exploit or enslave them. By the time the interface was turned off, the Valeth soldier was crying. His species didn't cry often, but the human emotions had overwhelmed his natural defenses. I didn't know, he whispered. We thought you were just another species to be conquered. We didn't understand that you have families like ours, children like ours. Young-ho sat down across from the alien. Now you know why we fight. We're not protecting territory or resources. We're protecting everything we love. Meanwhile, Sang-hoon's broadcast continued to reach across the galaxy. Human territory is not just space on a star chart. It is home to billions of people who have never harmed anyone. It contains worlds where human children play in safety, where artists create beauty, where scientists search for knowledge that benefits all species. When you threaten our territory, you threaten everything that makes life worth living. General, Kang received reports from observers throughout the galaxy. The alien alliance fleet was nearly complete. 4,200 ships from 43 different species. Each ship carried weapons capable of destroying planets. Together, they had enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. General, the enemy fleet is beginning to move. Estimated arrival at our outer boundary is 18 hours. Yoon-ji nodded. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Every human colony was ready. Every defensive system was armed. The Guardian network was fully activated and waiting. But this battle would be different from the previous ones. 4,000 ships couldn't be stopped by conventional Guardian tactics. This would require something unprecedented in human history. Signal all colonies to activate full defensive protocols. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the inner systems. Prepare the deep reality manipulators for combat deployment. The deep reality manipulators were weapons that existed more in theory than practice. They could alter the fundamental properties of space-time on a massive scale. One device could make an entire star system uninhabitable. Another could create barriers that nothing in the universe could cross. Humanity had built 12 of these weapons over the past 50 years. They had never been tested in combat because using them incorrectly could damage the fabric of reality itself. General, are you sure about this? The simulations show a 15% chance of uncontrollable dimensional cascade if we use more than 3 devices simultaneously. The alternative is the complete destruction of human civilization. I'll take those odds. Back in his laboratory, Young-ho was finishing his experiments with the alien prisoners. Every species showed the same reaction when exposed to human memories. They realized that humans weren't conquerors or monsters. They were families, just like their own families. Doctor, what should we do with this data? Young Ho looked at his research files. The neural interface had proven that most species could understand and relate to human emotions once they were exposed to them. The problem was that military leaders and politicians rarely allowed themselves to see their enemies as people. Prepare full documentation packages. We'll transmit them to every world in the galaxy. Let the alien civilians see what their governments are really attacking. Sang-hoon's broadcast was reaching its climax. To the 43 species now approaching our territory, we know you are afraid. You see our capabilities and assume we will. Use them to conquer you. This fear is understandable but misguided. Humans have no interest in ruling other species. We want only to live in peace and protect our families. He paused, his voice becoming more serious. However, if you attack our worlds, you will face the full extent of human defensive capabilities. We have shown you small demonstrations of our technology. What approaches your fleets is not demonstration. It is reality manipulation on a scale that could affect entire sectors of space. General Kang activated the first deep reality manipulator. Space around the human outer colonies began to change. Physical laws became fluid. Time flowed differently in some areas. Light bent in impossible directions. But we offer you one final chance to avoid catastrophe. Turn your fleets around, return to... Ambassador Jinwoo Bei stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive chamber on Concordia Station. The tension in the air was so thick it could be cut with a knife. The chair recognizes the representative of the Terran Coalition, announced the council speaker, a tall insectoid being from the Manthari Collective. Jinwoo walked slowly to the central podium. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on him. In the past 24 hours, everything had changed. The massive alien alliance fleet had encountered humanity's reality manipulation weapons and suffered losses beyond imagination. Honored delegates, Jinwoo began, his voice calm and clear. You have called this emergency session to address the human threat to galactic stability. Before we discuss threats, let us discuss facts. He activated a holographic display showing the past month's events. The images were stark and undeniable. Fact 1. The Valith Confederation invaded human territory without provocation, demanding the surrender of our colony worlds. Fact 2. When they were defeated, 4 major powers sent fleets to attack us. Fact 3. When those fleets were also defeated, 43 species formed the largest military alliance in galactic history to commit genocide against the human race. The Valeth representative stood up angrily. The humans possess weapons that threaten the natural order of the universe. They must be stopped before they destroy us all. Jinwoo looked at the alien calmly. And yet, Ambassador Kethril, your invasion fleet was returned to you unharmed. Every ship, every crew member. We could have destroyed them. But we chose mercy. How does that make us a threat? A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates had forgotten that humanity had shown restraint in every battle. They had focused only on the demonstrations of power, not the mercy that followed. But yesterday's battle was different, interjected the Zephyrian representative. Entire sectors of space have been rendered uninhabitable. Your weapons have torn holes in reality itself. Jinwoo nodded gravely. Yesterday, 4,000 ships came to destroy our worlds and enslave our people. We used weapons we had hoped never to need. The results were unfortunate. Captain Yejin Hong was leading rescue operations in the damaged sectors. Her ship, the Busan Guardian, was specially equipped with reality stabilization equipment. She and her crew were working around the clock to save alien survivors from the space-time distortions. Captain's log, supplemental. We've rescued another 200 Kastani crew members from a ship trapped in a temporal loop. They've been experiencing the same 10 minutes over and over for the past 6 hours. Medical teams report they'll recover fully once we get them back to normal space-time. The rescue operations were unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of leaving their enemies to die in the reality distortions, human ships were risking their own safety to save alien lives. Every survivor was treated with the same medical care that would be given to human casualties. Sir, we're detecting another distress signal. It's coming from inside a space-time fold. The ship appears to be existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Yejin nodded grimly. The reality manipulation weapons had worked exactly as designed, creating barriers and distortions that made invasion impossible. But they had also created pockets of unstable physics where the normal rules didn't apply. Take us in carefully. Use the quantum anchors to maintain our dimensional stability. We're not losing any more people to the distortions, human or alien. Back at the Galactic Council, Jinwoo continued his presentation. You want to know why humans developed such powerful weapons? Let me show you our history. The holographic display changed to show Earth's past. Images of warfare, genocide, and destruction filled the chamber. The alien delegates watched in fascination and horror as humanity's violent history unfolded before them. For thousands of years, we fought each other over territory, resources, and ideology. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came closer to extinction than any species should survive. The images shifted to show humanity's first steps into space, then their early encounters with alien species. When we reached the stars, we hoped for peace. Instead, we found predators. The hegemony of suns enslaved 3 of our early colonies before we learned to defend ourselves. The Mordak clans destroyed 2 of our research stations for sport. The Kastani Republic claimed our territory because they said we were too primitive to deserve it. Elder Daun Lim stood in the archives beneath New Seoul, preparing historical documents for the council presentation. She had lived through humanity's early expansion and remembered every defeat, every loss, every lesson learned in blood. Ambassador Bay is requesting documentation of the Kepler massacre, her assistant reported. Dae-Yoon pulled the files with shaking hands. The Kepler massacre had happened 30 years ago, but the memories were still fresh. A human colony of 50,000 people wiped out by Valeth raiders who wanted their planet's mineral resources. It was the event that had convinced humanity to accelerate the Prometheus project. Send him everything, every image, every recording, every survivor testimony. It's time the galaxy learned what their civilized species have done to human families. The holographic display in the council chamber now showed scenes from the Kepler massacre. Alien delegates watched in uncomfortable silence as human children fled from Valeth soldiers. They saw entire families executed for refusing to reveal the locations of mineral deposits. This is what convinced us to build weapons that could defend our people absolutely, Jinwoo said quietly. Every technological advancement was a response to an attack on innocent humans. We didn't seek to become powerful. We were forced to become powerful. The Valeth representative tried to interrupt, but Jinwoo continued. You call us a threat to galactic stability, but which species in this chamber has never attacked human territory? Which species has never claimed our worlds for themselves? Which species has never tried to enslave or destroy human families? The chamber fell silent. Jinwoo looked around at the assembled delegates, most of whom couldn't meet his eyes. We have territorial disputes with every major power represented here, not because we expanded into their space, but because they expanded into ours. Not because we attacked their colonies, but because they attacked ours. Captain Hong's rescue operations were expanding as more human ships arrived to help. The reality distortions had trapped over 30,000 alien crew members in various forms of unstable spacetime. Human teams were working to save every single one. Captain, we've successfully extracted the Mordak destroyer from the dimensional fold. All crew members are alive and unharmed. They're asking to speak with you personally. Yejin made her way to the medical bay where the Mordak survivors were recovering. The leader of the group was a scarred veteran who had probably fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. Human captain, the alien said in broken English. Why do you save us? We came here to kill your people. Yejin sat down beside the alien's medical bed. Because killing is wrong. Because you have families who love you. Because every life has value even when that life belongs to someone who wanted to hurt us. The Mordak warrior stared at her in confusion. In his culture, showing mercy to enemies was considered weakness. But he had seen human ships risk themselves to save his crew from certain death. "I do not understand your people. You have weapons that could destroy worlds, but you use them only to defend. You have power that could conquer the galaxy, but you save the lives of those who attack you. That's what makes us human," Yejin replied simply. In the council chamber, Jin Wu was presenting humanity's proposal for galactic peace. "We don't want to rule anyone. We don't want to conquer anything. We want exactly what we've always wanted, to live in peace and protect our families. But we've learned that peace requires strength." The holographic display showed the current state of human defensive capabilities. Guardianships, reality manipulation weapons, dimensional barriers, all the tools that had made human territory inviolate. These weapons will never be used for conquest. They exist solely to protect human worlds from those who would take them. But they also offer something new to the galaxy: the possibility of sanctuary. This was the part of Jin Wu's presentation that would change everything. Any species that commits to non-aggression and peaceful coexistence will be welcome in human space. Any world that faces extinction from natural disasters or hostile neighbors can request protection under human defensive systems. Any people fleeing persecution or genocide will find safety behind our barriers. The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Humanity was offering to extend their protection to other species. It was unprecedented in galactic history. "But there is one condition," Jin Wu continued, his voice firm. "Any species that chooses aggression over peace, conquest over cooperation, will find themselves excluded from human space forever. We will defend ourselves and our allies against anyone who threatens innocent lives." Elder Lim was monitoring reactions from across the galaxy as Jin Wu's speech was broadcast. Early reports were encouraging. 17 minor species had already requested protection from larger neighbors. 3 worlds facing ecological collapse were asking for human assistance. But the major military powers were split. Some were considering. President Subin Cho stood before the assembled representatives of 73 species in the newly constructed Hall of Peace orbiting New Earth. 6 months had passed since the Valeth invasion, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the reality of human power used for protection rather than conquest. "Delegates of the new Galactic Compact," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber through quantum translation systems that made her words understandable to every species present. "Today marks the official establishment of our new era of cooperative peace." Admiral Jae-hyuk Ryu monitored the ceremony from the command center of the Peace Corps headquarters. The organization he led was unlike any military force in galactic history. Its mission was not to conquer or destroy, but to prevent conflicts before they could escalate into war. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Rigel system. The hegemony of suns is threatening to invade 3 refugee worlds that requested our protection." Jae-hyuk studied the tactical display. The hegemony had refused to sign the new Galactic Compact, insisting on their right to conquer weaker species. Now they were testing human resolve by threatening worlds under protection. "Deploy Peace Corps Squadron 7. Full deterrent configuration. Make sure the hegemony sees exactly what they'll be facing if they continue this course." The Peace Corps was staffed by volunteers from dozens of species, but its command structure was human-dominated. This wasn't from prejudice, but from practical necessity. Humans were the only species with the technology and mindset needed to use overwhelming force solely for defensive purposes. Dr. Kyung-Soo Woo was conducting his morning meeting with the directors of the Cultural Exchange Program. Representatives from 46 species sat around the conference table, discussing the integration challenges they faced. "The Altarian refugees are adapting well to life on New Geneva," reported Director Thekmar, a tall humanoid with blue-tinted skin, "but they're still afraid that the hegemony will find them somehow." "That fear is understandable," Kyung-Soo replied. "The Altarians have been hunted for 3 generations. It will take time for them to believe they're truly safe." The Cultural Exchange Program had become humanity's most successful diplomatic tool. When species lived together peacefully, they learned to see each other as people rather than potential threats. Fear and hatred were hard to maintain when you were sharing meals and raising children together. "What about the Zentari colony on New Jeju?" asked another director. "Excellent progress. The Zentari farming techniques have increased crop yields by 30%. In return, human medical technology has eliminated the genetic disorders that were killing their children. Both species are benefiting from the exchange." President Cho continued her address to the assembled delegates. "The Terra Doctrine is simple. Human space remains sovereign and inviolate. Any species that threatens our territory or our allies will face the full extent of our defensive capabilities. But any species that approaches us peacefully will find protection, cooperation, and friendship." She gestured to the mixed delegation before her. "Today we have representatives from species that were enemies just months ago, Valeth survivors, who learned what it meant to be shown mercy, Zephyrian refugees fleeing their own government's tyranny, Mordak families seeking better lives for their children." In the audience, former Admiral Kethrak of the Valeth Confederation listened carefully. His son served in the Peace Corps now, working alongside humans to prevent the kind of senseless conflicts that had defined the Admiral's military career. After his fleet's defeat and his rescue by human forces, Kethrak had returned to Valeth, space with a new perspective. He had tried to convince his government to abandon their aggressive expansion and join the new Galactic Compact. When they refused, he had requested asylum in human space. Now he led a colony of Valeth refugees on New Harmony, a world where former enemies lived together in peace. It wasn't easy. Centuries of conditioning toward violence didn't disappear overnight. But it was possible. Admiral Ryu received an update from his squadron commanders. "Peace Corps 7 reporting, sir. The Hegemony fleet has withdrawn from the Rigel system after observing our defensive capabilities. No shots were fired. The refugee worlds remain secure." This was how most Peace Corps operations ended. The mere presence of human defensive technology was usually enough to deter aggression. But Jae-hyuk knew that someday, someone would push too far and actual force would be necessary. "Any casualties or incidents?" "None, sir." The Hegemony commander requested a meeting with our diplomatic team before withdrawing. Apparently, he wants to discuss terms for his species to join the compact. Jae-hyuk smiled. Another victory for deterrent diplomacy. The hegemony of suns had been one of the galaxy's most aggressive powers, but even they were beginning to understand. That conquest was no longer profitable when the victims could call for help from reality-manipulating defenders. Dr. Wu received a report from one of his field teams working in the former Kastani Republic. The government had collapsed after their military defeat, leaving dozens of worlds in chaos. Human aid teams were working to establish stable, peaceful governments in the affected systems. "Doctor, the Kastani are requesting full membership in the Compact. They want to restructure their entire society along human principles." This was both encouraging and concerning. Kyung-soo was pleased that former enemies were embracing peaceful cooperation, but he worried about species that tried to copy human culture too closely instead of finding their own path to peace. Approve the membership request, but make sure they understand that they need to be Kastani, not imitation humans. The compact works because each species contributes their own unique strengths. President Cho was addressing the most difficult part of her speech, the question of enforcement. Some have asked what happens to species that refuse to accept the new order, that continue to wage wars of conquest, that threaten innocent people with slavery or genocide. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew that several major powers had rejected the compact and continued their aggressive policies. The answer is simple. They will find themselves increasingly isolated. Their victims will have somewhere to escape to. Their neighbors will have protection from their attacks. Their own people will see that there is a better way to live. This was the true genius of the human approach. Instead of trying to conquer or destroy aggressive species, they simply made aggression unprofitable. Why fight costly wars when your enemies could escape to safety? Why maintain expensive military forces when no one was left to conquer? But if diplomacy fails, if deterrence is ignored, if genocide threatens innocent lives, then human defensive forces will respond with whatever level of force is necessary to protect the innocent. Former Admiral Kethrak stood up when President Cho called for responses from the delegates. President Cho, I speak as someone who came here as an enemy and stayed as a friend. The human way is not easy to understand for species like mine that have always solved problems with violence. His translator rendered his words into dozens of languages simultaneously. But I have seen what peace can accomplish. My son, who would have been a Veleth warrior destined for a short, violent life, is now a Peace Corps officer protecting refugee families. My people, who lived in fear of constant warfare, now grow food and create art. This is not weakness. This is the greatest strength in the galaxy. The chamber erupted in applause. Kethrak's transformation from enemy admiral to peace advocate had become legendary throughout human space. Admiral Ryu was dealing with a more complex situation in the Outer Rim. Intelligence reports indicated that the remaining aggressive species were forming a new alliance determined to destroy human influence before it could spread further. How many ships are we looking at? Current estimates suggest around 8,000 vessels from 26 species. They're calling it the Galactic Liberation Front, claiming they're fighting to free the galaxy from human tyranny. Jae-hyuk shook his head. 8,000 ships would have been an unstoppable force before humanity revealed their defensive capabilities. Now it was just a very expensive way to commit suicide. Do we have any allies who might try to help them? No, sir. Every species that's seen human defensive technology up close has either joined the compact or decided to stay neutral. The Liberation Front is made up entirely of species that haven't directly faced our capabilities yet. Then they're about to get an education. Dr. Wu was reviewing the latest integration statistics when his assistant brought him remarkable news. Doctor, we've reached a milestone. Over 100 species have now requested some form of cooperation or protection from human forces. That's more than half the known civilizations in the galaxy. Kyung-soo looked at the numbers with satisfaction. The cultural exchange program had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to live together peacefully under human protection. What about species integration rates? Excellent across all metrics. Intermarriage rates are up 300%. Joint scientific projects have increased by 500%. Trade volumes between former enemy species have grown by over 1,000%. This was what made the new Galactic Compact different from previous peace treaties. Instead of just stopping wars, it was creating genuine